So I think we can start. There are still people joining in, but I think that we should start if it's fine with everyone. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eva Baños de Guisasala. I'm advisor at CEMR, the Council of European Municipalities and Regions. My portfolios are on climate and sustainable development goals, and we are very happy to welcome you. This is a series of events that we organize on an annual basis, these training academies, and they have the intention to give you an insight of what is the latest information on climate change. And this year we've chosen the topic of water to give a more practical example to this dimension. So I will be passing the floor to a moderator from United Cities for Local Governments, but before I do so, let me just share with you some practicalities. First, and one important one, is that there is interpretation in Spanish and English, so you can choose it from the channels. The agenda and the background material has been shared with you in advance and is also translated into English and Spanish. And we will be producing a report with the main outcomes and all the recorded links by the end of this week. You can also use the chat at any moment. We will be monitoring this for you, and we'll be giving you the floor if time allows. And then, as I said, this session and tomorrow's session is being recorded. We'll be sharing with you an evaluation form at the end of the session, so you can also give us your insights. So that can also help us improve for the next sessions next year. And last but not least, we'll be taking a group picture after the keynote speakers today and tomorrow. So just make sure that you turn on your cameras and you give us your greatest smile. Okay, so without further ado, I will pass the floor to my colleague Sarah from UCLG. Sarah, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Eva. And we would like to welcome you here from CMR and UCLG. So before I go to the agenda, I would like Dr. Fabrizio, if you are around, maybe to say some welcome words on behalf of CMR. Are you in?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you so much.
Hello, good afternoon, Sarah. Hello, Eva. Very happy to be with you this afternoon. I'm Fabrizio Rossi. I'm the Secretary General of the Council of European Municipalities and Regions. I'm very happy to see so many participants from all over the world. It's really a privilege to have you all with us today. The focus of this training academy indeed is on water resilience. We've been already running a few editions of this training academy. I would say the focus we have chosen for this year training academy is quite, I would say, close to my heart. I mean, water, unfortunately, is today a very trendy topic, I would say. But what I see is that whenever we speak about water is either about too much or too little water. It's about floods or droughts. It's about scarcity or excess. And to me, this is a bit of, it's a pity, I would say. It's a pity that we mostly speak about water from a crisis perspective. It's a pity because to me, water is literally everything. Water is everywhere. It's about the way we shape our cities. It's about the way we run our economies. It's about life, and we are water ourselves. And you know, it's not only now that water is, or the way we speak about water is a bit, is from a crisis perspective. I can remember already 30 years ago, you know, I'm coming from a small island in Italy. And I remember I've been living myself on my skin, the paradox of water, because I grew up on an island surrounded by water. I've been always in love with water. Yet at the same time, when I was quite young, I would say more than 30 years ago, I've been experiencing water restrictions. I remember my family, we were not able to access clean water from the tap, from during some time during the day. And I've been experiencing this as a child. And it was interesting really to see this paradox, because I could really feel the abundance of water all around me, living in an island, yet water somehow was not available to me, was not there to fulfill our needs. So this is also because of this personal experience. I've been of course very interested about water all my life, and water is also a crucial topic that we are addressing now more and more from CEMR, from the Council of European Municipalities and Regions. We do this because we do believe that local and regional governments, cities and municipalities, they really have a strong role to play when it comes really to drive innovative practices about water management, water resilience, and that they also have a very important role indeed in shaping and driving the creation of solutions for the challenges that we are seeking. So today's training academy, of course, will be the opportunity for us really to discuss some of these complexities around the water scarcities, which is not, of course, an easy topic. It's fairly complex, I would say. This is why with us we have today and tomorrow some very well-reputed renowned experts. They will help us really to understand all the different dimensions we are playing with at city and municipality level when we are working on water scarcity. And of course, the idea of these 2 days is also about sharing knowledge, best practices. This is also the opportunity for you to connect with your peers in other parts of the world, in other regions of the world. This is a great opportunity. It's also part of the reason why we are extremely happy to run this training academy. We see people coming from all over the world. They do connect, they speak, they do connect on LinkedIn, and then somehow this is also a way really to create new relationship. So I'll be coming and going today and tomorrow. Unfortunately, I cannot spend the 2 full days with you, but I wish you a very fruitful exchange. Whenever you have any doubt, you are not familiar about CEMR, the Council of European Municipalities and Regions, or UCLG, do not hesitate to reach out to our colleagues, check our websites, LinkedIn. We are always happy to hear from you. And again, enjoy this little short journey. And really, I hope this is going to be useful to all of you. Thank you very much. I wish you a very good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Fabrizio. And of course, also to remind that water has so much power, and water is so sensual, so sensitive, and so important for all of us. You have said some points on Europe, on the situation of Europe and European local and regional governments. And of course, as you all have seen in our note, we will come to this. The problems of Europe, the problem of Europe is the water scarcity, the floods, but also the pollution, the ecological status of water, of groundwater. And we will, of course, enlighten this during the academy, focusing a little bit on Europe, because we are doing this here together, CEMR, our European section, and the UCLG. But I would nevertheless also remind that the water cycles, the water problems are not only in Europe, and we have other regions we sometimes do not visualize that much, but I see many of you are part of this region. So, for example, the Middle East is definitely the most effective region suffering water shortage, in particular drinking water, and this is already causing transborder conflicts, and we have losses of water sources that are not to be recovered anymore. Then, of course, the aridity and the loss of soil. Fabrizio said that in a point, but we have here African countries between 1990 and 2050 losing a lot of agricultural activities because of the degradation. So this affects 12% of the gross domestic product. So when we talk about losing our water, we talk about quite a cycle, also economic. And finally, of course, I see some of you here from Latin America or Asia, the tropical regions, which have always been so blended and so benefiting of so much water and nature, but the alteration of the systems has drastic consequences, not only a lot of storms, flood, but also desertification and increase of pollution of water reservoirs. So the conflicts are many, and our scientists, of course, will show you a little bit more of this. But here in our academy, we look into the human dimension and the urban dimension. So we are not only looking about what is water and what is happening, and of course the relation of climate change and water, but we look into who is affected, and of course who is affected most by all the crisis of climate change generally, but in particular here of water, is the poor that live in cities and towns, and many of them fleeing rural areas that are not productive anymore, and these are considered climate refugees. And this is not only an international problem. For example, I now speak from Barcelona, from Spain, where we already have climate refugees. So this is farmers that lose their land and their opportunities, and of course they cannot be there anymore in their places. So we in UCLG, we see all this coming up, and as Fabrizio said, it's an important topic that gains attention, and our constituency is quite historically involved in water, and with a very strong agenda looking at water as a right, of course, as a critical basic service, because this is one of the services, water provision, drinking water and sanitation, is almost everywhere covered by local and regional governments. So it's a very important task, also a fee and income. And of course, these management points are very, very critical when we talk about how to meet the big goals. So the United Nations, for example, now talks about reaching 100% of circularity of fresh water. So this means that all the water that we use is not only on household level recycled, but it is also thought as in a whole system. But without a good infrastructure, and in particular sanitation infrastructure, this is very, very difficult. So how to get there without the necessary financing models to guarantee that these basic services is provided in a feasible and accessible way. So in our part on the global negotiation, we are increasingly looking into this, and my colleague will tomorrow tell you a little bit more. So we look at the Water Forum, the UN Water, the negotiations on oceans, and all this is quite logical for us because we connect the social and the environmental agenda. As you know, in the local level, we always have a lot of ability of our leaders to look into this all together. And here we claim, as in other agendas, a full involvement of the subnational level in the global negotiation. We look into the role of city diplomacy, and tomorrow we will look this year a little bit more on the decentralized cooperation. But we also look, of course, into the future of water governance. So this is very important because we have water is not, it's a public good, but not necessarily only a public service. There's also quite a lot of privatization. So we look into all this, agenda on a global scale. And this is only possible because we learn constantly from you. We learn constantly from our experts, so like the experts we will hear in the following, but we also learn constantly from you, from your practices. How is this meaningful in the localities? What is innovation, and what are critical policies that can be changed from local level? Where do you need national or regional or subnational support? So all this is taken up and looked at. And so we hope with this Climate Academy, we are not only giving this service to our members, but we learn a lot from you, and we will take up all the points you do in our work of advocacy and research. So this is meant as a welcome, and I hope that now with the agenda to come, you will of course you dive much deeper, and this will happen after the icebreaker. We will have a little exercise to get to know who is in the room, but then we will have an important research collaborator, Jacopo Furlaneto, looking into water-related risk in changing climate. And of course, the whole afternoon will have games, will have practices, and will have a lot of interaction. So before going further, I also announced that we will take a picture after the keynote of Jacopo. But before going there, I would like my colleague Juan Carlos to give us a little drive through a short consultation to get to know you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and welcome everyone. So yes, to get to know who is joining us today in the room, I would like to invite you to join a consultation using Mentimeter. So for those of you aware that you know it, you can go to menti.com using your phone or through the link that I just shared on the screen, and use the code that I will be sharing in a second, that you will see in screen as well. The code 51326729 to join the consultation. You can also use your phone and scan the QR code that you see on the screen, and it will lead you directly to the consultation. So again, please go to www.menti.com and use the code 51326729 to join us. I'm going to start with the first question, and it's just to know, where are you joining us from? And I'll give you a few seconds for everyone to join. Remember, the code's still at the top of the screen, 51326729. You can join us at any moment to answer these questions. And we will be using this not only for this ice-breaking exercise, but later during the sessions for some other interactive games. So please do join us and interact with us. Okay, so it's good to see we have a very strong participation from Europe and Africa, but also some participants coming from the Americas and also from Asia, even when it's already late over there. So thank you very much for making the time to join us. Now, I will go to the next question, and you can still join us if you're still trying to, and you can answer any of the questions once you join. So which of these categories best represents you? Are you an elected representative, major, city councillor, local or regional government staff, a member of academia or scientific organization, NGOs, organized civil society, private sector, or others, including general public? We can have a very diverse group of persons. Okay. Still 38 answers. We still have a few more people in the room, so do join us if you can using the code that you see on the screen. And we do have some political representatives as well, so it would be great to hear from you during the sessions. Now let's go to the topic of today. We were already talking about some of the risks that cities face, but beyond, including water and beyond water, what has been the main hazard in your city or region in the last 5 years? So please use one word to share with us. What has been the main hazard in your city or region during the last 5 years? Only 2 responses now. We'd like to hear from all of you, so please go ahead. Okay, so we see more coming in. Still flooding, floods, flood or big hazard affecting many cities, but we also have pollution, floods and cyclones, earthquakes, loss of coastline and erosion, water shortages, typhoon, wildfires, sea level rise. So a lot of things related to water, definitely, which is the topic that we will be discussing today, but also some other risks, including earthquake, typhoons, and climate-related hazards, heat waves as well. Very good. Now, going into the topic of water itself, and I think this might change also depending on the region and time of the year. What water-related risk will your city region face in the next 5-10 years? So not only in the last 5 years, but also looking forward, what do you think will be the main hassle, water-related risk that your city is going to be facing? And we have here kind of 3 typologies that have been shared by the speakers before. So increased flooding, on the opposite, the water scarcity, but also the issue of reduced water quality. So I think all of them seem to be very relevant for our discussion during the next 2 days. That's great to hear, because we will be working with all of these ones and sharing examples and some expertise on that. So thank you so much for participating in this consultation. We will go back to some other questions using this Mentimeter after the keynote speech. So you can leave the browser open with it, or you can join us again later. But for now, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and I will give the floor back to Sara for the next part of the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Juan Carlos. I think this was very insightful and not surprising. We hope to hear more from you. Please share in this chat. Also, if you want to share information, please don't hesitate. So we will come now to our keynote speech, and please also get ready for the picture afterwards. And I would very shortly like to introduce Dr. Jacopo Furlaneto. He is a collaborator in the Institute for Climate Resilient Risk Assessment and Adaptation Strategies at the division in the Centro of Euro-Mediterranean sui cambiamenti climatici. So this is a Euro-Mediterranean Center on Climate Change, a very renowned and a very interesting partner for all of us. So Jacopo, I understand you will have some slides and you will guide us through an overview to land on our topic.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sara. It's an honor to be here. I'm very pleased, and I will share my screen now. Just a second. So let me know if you can all see the slides in presentation mode.
Yes.
That's perfect. So great. So without further ado, let's dive a little bit more into the water-related risks in a changing climate. I would like to start before going deeper into climate change and water risks with this picture. This is the pale blue dot picture taken from the Voyager 1 space probe in 1990 from over 6 billion kilometers far away from in the space. And it was commissioned by Carl Sagan. It's pale, it's blue, and it's a dot. It's 3 important points. Specifically the blue, because our planet is covered, mainly covered by water. And it is a dot, meaning that there is nothing else around it, or at least nothing else that can harbor life. And as Carl Sagan said, like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand. So I think this is an important principle we can all keep in mind during these 2 days and in the future to deal with climate change and water-related risks specifically. So what do we mean by climate change? Let's have a brief introduction about the concept of climate change. As we all know, climate change is mainly driven by temperature increase, which has been steadily increasing in the last decades. In 2024, we reached the year maximum of plus 1.35 degrees compared to the pre-industrial period. And this temperature increase is driven by greenhouse gases, just to name a few: CO2, CH4, methane, and N2O. But we need to be aware that this plus 1.45 degrees in 2024, it's an average of the entire air temperature of the planet. As we can see from this animation, different places on Earth can experience and are experiencing different degrees of warming. And so some parts of the planet are going to be warmer, some, very few, are going to be slightly colder. But on average, we have a plus 1.35. Specifically, Europe, for example, is getting warmer than the global average, as you can also see from the still picture here now that has stopped in the last in the 2017-2021 period. So the warming is not going to be even across the entire planet, and different areas are going to face different climate extremes and then hazards with a different intensity and frequency. But the atmosphere and the Earth and the land are not the only thing warming up. This plot shows the increasing in heat accumulation in our oceans, right? So as you can see, the oceans are by 2022 reached more than 300 zetajoules of heat. What is a zettajoule? This pretty weird word. A zettajoule is a 1,000 billion of billion joules, which approximates to the amount of energy you would need to boil 164 times 10 at power 15th liters of water, which is an almost a number you can almost not imagine even to put as an amount of energy. And our oceans and water bodies have stored this energy. Actually, oceans have absorbed 90% of the heat in the recent decades, with specifically the top surface meters of the oceans storing as much heat as the Earth's entire atmosphere. And this points to, as was also mentioned previously by Sara and Fabrizio, to the fact that water has a pivotal role in many sectors, many aspects, including also the mitigating effect of rising temperature, right? So, but this comes with a cost. And the cost is pretty expensive, we could say, because this increasing in heat storage of the ocean is leading to sea level rise due to thermal expansion of water, bleaching of corals, therefore hindering the functioning of water and ocean ecosystems, the acceleration of melting of the ice caps, the intensification of hurricanes, because water has much more energy stored in it, and therefore also the hurricanes coming from oceans can be much more energetic. And then changes in the balance and biochemistry of the oceans. So we need to be aware that it's not only the air temperature of the planet that is increasing, it's the temperature of also the other systems that cover our planet, including water itself. So we know that the temperature is increasing, as has been increasing steadily in the past, but what about the future? Well, for the future, we usually speak about scenarios, right? So scenarios are, let's say, definition assumptions that integrate socioeconomic pathways and characteristics that influence the amount of greenhouse gases we put into the atmosphere that then have the warming effect on the planet. Scenarios are used in climate models to predict future climate. And I listed them here in the plot on the left. You can see they range from SSP, which is shared socioeconomic pathway number 1 to number 5. The one is the sustainability, is one extreme, and the other one is 5, is fossil fuel development. Well, right now we are potentially finding ourselves in the middle of SSP 3, which is regional rivalry, which is characterized by policy focused on security, barriers to international trade, high inequality, slow economic growth, and low population growth in rich countries and high in other countries. These socioeconomic behaviors are influencing the amount of greenhouse gases we put in the atmosphere because they're influencing our economies and the measures we use to mitigate climate change and adapt to it. So on the right, you can see projections made by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change about the temperature we expect to reach under all these different scenarios. And under the SSP3 scenario, we could find ourselves around 4 degrees on average of temperature increase on the planet. Remember that right now we are standing at 1.3, more or less. With temperature increase, of course, we're going to have strong effects and impacts on the Earth system. For example, we're going to see an increase in the annual hottest day temperature change. So this, of course, pretty understandable. Temperature is going to increase, but this is going to have an influence also on the soil moisture, so the amount of water present in the soils, because more temperature means also more evaporation from soils. And so this can lead to aridity and desertification in many parts of the world, depending on also the temperature increase. And also in the change of precipitation patterns, which can change in intensity and in spreading through the year, right? So we could have less precipitation event with a higher intensity rather than precipitation spread evenly over the year and seasons. So this is what very briefly science and research can tell us. But of course, this perception and this evidence does not only come from research and science, but it also comes from experts in different sectors. This they put here is the report of the Global Risk Report of the World Economic Forum 2024. Which among the other aspects covered in the report, it also covered survey with 1,490 experts from academia, private sector, government agencies, international community, and civil society, that they noted that they're currently, to their perception, the most impactful risk and relevant risk worldwide was the extreme weather. And they were also asked to put it into perspective in the future. And on the short term, as you can see, so in the 2 years future, they said that in the top 5, extreme weather events are there, but also other risks are many present: misinformation, disinformation, interstate armed conflict, etc. But when they were asked about the long term, the situation drastically changed in terms of perception. And as you can see, the top 5 is dominated by environmental risks. So extreme weather events, critical changes to our system, biodiversity loss and the consistent collapse, and natural resource shortages. And it is important to note that all these impacts and risks are interconnected. So they're not isolated and will not happen alone, right? So this is something very important to keep in mind. So with this first introduction to the climate change and the situation regarding risks and risk perception and what we can expect in future scenarios, let's go a little bit more deeper into the water-related risks with an overview and example of different aspects of the water-related risks, which are pretty well represented in these 2 pictures, which are water scarcity, so too little water or too much water, which, as you might see, weird that we can have both aspects together, but climate change is driving extremes extremes on the Earth system. So increasing temperature can lead to both extremes. So on one side, lack of water, and the other side, too much water concentrated in very few events. So extreme climate events indeed are increasing in frequency and intensity. In the past have been increasing, and they are expected to increase in the future. I listed a few here: drought, ice melting, biodiversity loss, wildfire, heat waves, but also landslides, floodings, hurricanes, etc., and sea level rise. And as you can see, water connects most, if not all, of these risks and hazards, either through water excess or water scarcity. So water is something that remember the pale blue dot, our planet is mainly blue, and it's not just a way to picture it, is also intrinsically in its characteristics and its Earth system dynamics, that water drives most of the processes on our planet. And most of these extreme events also can lead to cascading impacts and can be interconnected. So it's not that we have a wildfire and that's it. A wildfire can cause cascading impacts, for example, creating turbidity in rivers and hindering the accessibility to clean water after the wildfire, for example, or making landslides more probable because there is no tree coverage anymore. So all these impacts and extreme events are connected, and they need to be treated also in the adaptation terms in a holistic way that considers them all. So water, as we said, is, of course, it goes without saying, extremely important. And even today, half of the people on Earth has severe limitation in accessing water and clean water, because it's not only the quantity, it's also the quality of water. And climate change is expected to increase the demand for water, specifically in some sectors, for example, agriculture, which as of now is accounting for 60 to 70% of the global water consumption. This is a picture I put from the World Research Institute Aqueduct Water Risk Atlas. You can also find information in the background material in the agenda. And it's a platform that is very useful to assess, for example, water stress in future scenarios or even flood risks in future scenario. Here I reported the water stress in 2050, which is the balance between the water demand and the water availability. So also the renewal of water resources. And as you can see, the situation is going to impact differently the different parts of Europe, Middle East, and North Africa, which are reported here. But some places are going to be hit more and some less. But in general, there is no place which is not undergo any kind of water stress. So it's going to be a pervasive problem that we will need to face. So the drought risk specifically, which is a water scarcity, it's something that we are going to experience more and more in the future. And interestingly, as reported by the IPCC in their assessment report 6 in 2022, there is a high confidence that climate change will shift soil moisture outside the range of observed and reconstructed values spanning the last millennium. So what we are going to see in the future years is something that with high confidence has never been seen in at least the past 1,000 years. So this goes without saying that more people will be exposed and more land will be exposed in future scenarios. And this is driven by a large number of factors. Of course, temperature increases, increasing evaporation and soil desertification, but also changes in the mean precipitation are going to have an effect. For example, here you can see a circle in the red circle. This is the climate scenarios SSP2, and with the long term 2081, 2100, and specifically in the Mediterranean area, but also you can see in South America, South Africa, and Oceania. You can see that in the summer month, June, July, August, for example, so when water is mostly needed, specifically for agriculture also, there is going to be a decrease in precipitation of up to around 40%. Which is a large gap in the water input into the land system. The drought risk is going to be a very big impact also, of course, for cities, because approximately half of the entire human population lives in cities. And they are therefore crucial places where adaptation is required. But we need to be aware that water scarcity is a problem that goes beyond the city borders. So it's not limited to the city itself, but it requires a coordination with other water sectors that require water in the surrounding areas and in the regions nearby. For example, just to name a few, energy, agriculture, or ecosystems themselves, because of course ecosystems, they help in mitigating climate change, and they provide ecosystem services from the human point of view, at least, and they are extremely important for the maintaining of a healthy planet, and they need water. So it is forecasted by that 2050, in a third of the world's largest cities, demand of water will be higher than water availability, and this will lead, for sure, and it's already leading to, we already see it, competition in water use for example, between city and agriculture, but also between different cities, for example. And this needs to be addressed, of course. Here I brought an example just visually that also Sara mentioned earlier. It's the Catalonia drought. That is a striking example here in Europe that we have. This is a picture of the Sau Reservoir that is serving Barcelona from March 2023 to March 2024. It's a comparison. As you can see, the amount of water is astonishingly low in March 2024. And this, of course, is affecting the availability of water in the city, in the surrounding cities, and also, of course, creating big issues for agriculture and therefore for people who live on agriculture. And then, of course, the leaving agricultural land also means a disruption on the economic system and on the food supply. So it's not a problem limited to the city itself, of course. But then this was water scarcity, but sometimes water can be too much. And in that case, we have a flood and that can lead to flooding risks. So also, according to the IPCC, in the chapter 4 dedicated to water, also river flood risk is expected to increase. And cities are considered at a particularly high risk compared to other areas due to their population density and their physical characteristics. For example, the imperviousness. Cities have a lot of cement, asphalt, so water is not able to infiltrate into the soil and is not slowed down by any surface, because cement has a makes the water flow very fast, and so reach like clogging points very easily and then create floodings. And as you can see in the world, in the future scenarios, we will see two aspects. Some areas will face decrease in the number of floodings, but those floodings are going to be much more intense. And other places will see more frequent floodings with less intensity. And both of these problems can be very hazardous and can have great impacts, of course, both the intensity and the frequency of those events happening. And they are also driven by the frequency and the intensity of the precipitation that we have seen might happen fewer times during a year, but with a really large amount of water pouring down from the sky and creating problems if this water is not properly handled and stored. And with the flood risk, sorry, with the flood hazard.
May I remind you on time?
Yeah,
Jacob.
yeah, sure. 5 minutes, right? So we also see a sharp increase in exposed population with the warming climate as well. But all these problems can be tackled with adaptation techniques that we can implement. One example of flood risk that I wanted to bring is the one that hit Central Europe in 2021. This has been attributed to climate change, increase in temperature. But I also wanted to show this to point out that not only the amount of water is important, but also the quality. So floodings can lead to presence of pollutants, heavy metals, turbidity that can hinder the access to water, to drinkable water for people. So what can we do? So we can basically have two actions. One is mitigation to reduce greenhouse gases, and the other one is adaptation to exploit this new condition by adjusting infrastructures and lifestyles to tackle these hazards. But adaptation can be pretty tricky. This is a picture I always like to share. This house had a decreased flood vulnerability because it was raised, but then it was more vulnerable to earthquakes. So adaptation must take into consideration all the hazards that can happen in an area. And so it's a pretty tricky process to be tackled. So just a few examples of adaptation measures. This actually is a video from the city where I live, is Venice mainland. And as you can see, in May 2024, there was a big flood. And water was all over the place because it had nowhere to go. It's all impervious. So we need drainage systems and less impervious ground to slow down water and flow, allowing for water infiltration. And one good example is the Augustenborg neighbor in Sweden, where water is allowed to, the neighbor has been planned and stormwater is allowed to flow through escape routes out of the neighbor and is able to infiltrate and accumulate in areas, slowing down the flooding effect and the flooding speed. But also drought can be pretty impactful on cities. As you can see, the water exploitation index is going to increase in the future in European cities. And one example that I can report, and forgive me for the pronunciation, is the Skierniewice city in Poland that in 2019 faced a combined heat-driven drought. And this led to a lack of water and no tap water for the residents for several days. Due to this, the city started to adopt adaptation measures. So, for example, which can include effectiveness of supply infrastructure, new wells, assessment of current water supplies, but also involving the population through behavioral change in water consumption. Also, these adaptation measures can have synergies, right? This is an example in Stuttgart, Germany, where green corridors can help on both sides. So reducing flood risk and also reducing heat wave risk, right? So the synergy between this infrastructure can be very important. Another example is in Antwerp, in Belgium, where the same thing happens. So we can build infrastructure that are able to tackle more than one problem at a time, and therefore creating incredibly higher added value than considering the single impacts and hazards singularly. So just to conclude, I would like to share this. Also, you can find it into the background material. Is the urban adaptation support tool, because of course adaptation is a really complex problem, and different areas of the world or even of a single region might face different hazards and impacts and will have different characteristics. So they will require targeted adaptation plans. So this tool is a tool designed specifically for adapt and search for possible strategies guiding step-by-step the adaptation process in cities to face climate change. So in concluding my presentation here, leaving with a question and a message. Message is that the future depends on us. We are standing here now and we can decide which path to take based on the choices and the possibilities we have right now. So I will leave this also with a question that can maybe drive interaction later on, which is also, what are the main challenges you face in implementing adaptation measures to climate change? Because of course, these challenges might need to be overcome and to then be able to adapt to different hazards and risks related to water. So thank you very much for your attention, and I leave the floor to Sara and for the further discussion.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jacopo. I think it was a very interesting, very logical and in the colorful presentation that in the end brings us now to what are our urban areas, what are our policies, what can we do. I have seen that also in the chat. There are many examples on stories, disasters, dramas, and places. So it is really a very, very, very interesting topic, and the connection to top science you make is very relevant, because of course all what this work you do and the scientists do is most of this is free of charge, and sometimes it's only that nobody knows where it is and how available it is. And this is of course also one of our role as associations, to make all this knowledge accessible. So I see many of you have already switched on your camera. This is wonderful. And so before we go to a short round of questions, we will take the picture. Okay, so I think just some the CMR colleagues let me know. We will now all smile.
We'll count up to 3, okay? And then you can smile. And we'll, because we're, I think, about 100 people, I will just move the screen so we can get, 4 screens.
Perfect.
Okay.
So
yeah, we'll count up to 3 and you give us your biggest smile. 1, 2, 3. Then second page. 1, 2, 3. Just keep smiling because I don't know who is in which page. And the last page we have 1, 2, 3. Okay, perfect. Many thanks, Sarah.
okay, thank you, and thank all of you. And now we go to our questions, and I have seen maybe Fabrizio would say a word first, and then I have Piotr. But please let me know if there's a question addressed by Juan Carlos, so we will summarize this. So Fabrizio, start.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you, Jacopo, for the very nice and insightful introduction to the topic we'll be addressing in the next 2 days. Maybe a quick reaction. I'm going here a bit off topic, but I think I really want to share this reflection, hoping this can trigger further thoughts in these 2 days. When we are discussing about mitigation and adaptation, this is pretty much about our relationship with the environment and what we can do as a society, as human beings, really to cope with these changes. There is a very interesting dimension next to this, which is really how, for instance, water scarcity and a decrease in water availability will impact our relationship between humans, between societies, between people across different borders, and also how this will impact the relationship within our communities. This is, I think, very important. I mean, we have seen in all across history that water really has determined the rise and the fall of civilizations. Today, water, together with some raw materials, is really becoming a hot topic on the global geopolitical agenda. At the same time, we see that water is often even a reason for polarization within our societies, even at local level. Water accessibility can raise tensions within our societies. I've been speaking, I had the chance to meet a great historian 3 or 4 years ago, and he was actually explaining to me that many of the conflicts that are around the world we tag as a religious conflict, they're actually conflicts about accessibility of resources, first of all, then they trigger other dynamics. But unfortunately, maybe this is also the focus for a further training academy. A dimension we at local level, we really need to take into account is also how this water scarcity or too much water in some cases will actually change the relationship within people within our societies. We are seeing already this happening, and I would say that unfortunately there is no magic here. Cooperation is the only way forward. So this is why we are all together today. It's important to see all these people together coming from different regions. There is no other way to address these tensions, to address these issues other than cooperation, European, international cooperation. But when people come together with dialogue and with goodwill to find good solutions, this is usually when the magic happens. So these are the thoughts I would like to share with you. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you very much, Fabrizio. There was is it a question, Eva, or is it?
I'm just, thank you for the presentation, Jacob. I think it was impressive. I learned a lot, and thank you, Fabrizio, for the follow-up. I'm just revising the chat, and then we have some questions and some comments. So all of them, thank you, Jacopo, for the presentations. They will be shared at the end of this week, so you know. But we have someone asking if you could clarify the statement you've made, which is like climate change is real, but it is presented, but how it is presented, it varies. If you can maybe expand on that comment, Jacopo, because you said that the Earth is warming, glaciers are melting, and weather patterns are changing. But however, there are some extreme disasters predictions that have been proven wrong or exaggerated. If you can comment on that. And then there are some additional comments I can come back after your clarification. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Well, the topic of communicating climate change is really a hot topic, right? And the prediction of extreme weather events is also a hot topic. what we need to keep clear in mind is that we need to look at trends and averages. We don't need to look at the single extreme weather events from defining what our climate change is working. There's a really big difference between the meteorological data, the weather aspect, and the climate. Climate is an average of a lot of different events, and we need to look at that. So of course, it can happen that weather predictions or prediction of certain extreme weather events might exaggerate it, because the prediction is not always perfect. But then we need to look at the trend, and the trend is clearly indicating that these extreme weather events are increasing and the impact that they're having are increasing, right? So of course, if we have a trend, we can have oscillations through the trend, but then the trend is clear and things are increasing. So that is the main the main aspect, I would say. I hope I answered the question.
Okay. Thank you, Jacopo. There's also one comment. I cannot see the country. I think it's India, where it says that civilization on water is associated with the topic of education, epic, and social and economical status of people from different parts of the world. So I don't know whether you're engaging onto some educational aspects linked to climate and water, or
yeah, I mention it in as a way that adaptation can work by educating people in saving water resources. I can, and I think it's really true. It's also mentioned by the comment, by the question. Just an example from where I live, from my region. We usually, historically, we have a lot of water, and every household has their own fountain in the house, and the fountain is pouring water 24 hours a day for the entire years, because that is tradition, right? And so people is let's say wasting a lot of water that is taken from below underground and then poured down into the rivers, and is not stored. And then in 2022 drought, there was no water into the underground anymore, and this was a huge issue. And because that is a matter of education as well, and involving citizens, say, okay, traditionally you always use water in this way, and there was always water in your house, and you could leave your fountain open all the time just because you had water. But now climate is changing, the times are changing, and we need to adapt our behaviors. And this requires education. This requires communication, and proper communication to people. And of course, this is a huge problem that I think it's all over the world. It's not specific to a region. It's cross-cutting.
Thank you, Jacopo. There's also one comment and one question from Saleh. So Saleh, maybe I give you the floor first, and then I'll come back to the comment I put on the chat. Please, Saleh.
Thank you, Eva, and thank you, Jacopo, for the great presentation. I am Saleh Rifai, Platforma assistant. I am originally from Damascus, Syria, so I have lived that drought situation, and now I'm living in Europe, so I can see the other side of that challenge. It's more a reflection, and also for us to reflect together and think about it. I think there is a dimension that is missing, which is prevention. I think now we are trying to mitigate, to adapt to the challenges that we are facing, but I think it's pretty much important also to diagnose the cause root of the issue, which is the way we live, the system that we are accepting, the way of life. So I think it's pretty relevant to also address the root cause of the issue, which is how the economy, the system in general, and how we can try to transform our model of life in a way that we could at least slow down the climate change. So for me, it's pretty much relevant also to address scientifically from the beginning what is the reason for this kind of crisis that we live in. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't agree more with you. Absolutely.
Thank you, Saleh. Then we also have a question for you, Jacopo. If you could give 1 or 2 examples of regional adaptation strategies for solving water scarcity. And then a comment also from India, saying that the Orissa famine of 1866 affected the east coast of India. It's an area covering 180,000 miles and containing a population of 47 million people. And the impact in the region of Arisa meant that it isolated the whole country, basically. So yeah, that's a comment. We will also put the comments in the report, but this person also says that he hopes that water management will mitigate those problems. But if you can maybe comment, Jacopo, on these 1-2 examples of regional adaptation strategies for solving water scarcity. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Well, out of my mind right now, well, my field of expertise specifically is impacts on vegetation and agriculture. So also in water management from that. So from a regional point of view, and also talking about the joint management of water resources, for example, between water and cities and agriculture. One example could be increasing the water use efficiency in agriculture, that considering also that agriculture is using 60–70% of water consumption globally. So for example, using a precision agriculture approaches, using satellite data, and also reducing the water losses through the water distribution irrigation channels, which is also a big portion of the water losses. And also this from the water quantity related to agriculture, but to cities, for example, one also big problem that is also really relevant, for example, in Italy here, is the water losses in the infrastructure in the aqueduct system, which sometimes are causing losses of 30–40% of extremes of water quantity transported through the pipeline, and that is lost. So that is also renewal of infrastructure, which can be decades old, is something that can really help, and that can be done. Let's say, of course, it's an economical effort, but something that could be important to do straightforwardly.
Thank you, Jacopo. Then I have, because we're running a bit of time, but maybe 2 more minutes for some additional questions. We have someone saying that given the past predictions warn of worsening desertification in the Sahel region, how do you explain the observed greening in some areas due to increased rainfall and improved land management? Does this suggest that climate models overestimated the long-term drying trend? That's one question. And maybe I will ask another question so you can respond as a block. How do you think the competition in water use between cities and agriculture will manifest?
Right. Well, these are very, very important and thoughtful and insightful questions. Well, regarding the desertification, I'm not personally extremely familiar with the Sahel region and the greening that is mentioned, but again, I can for certain say that as we also have seen from the pictures, from the plots and the maps of forecasted extreme precipitation, there can be areas where extreme precipitation is going to increase, of course, and there can be areas in which soil moisture could decrease as well. So we need to consider both these dynamics happening and the balance between them, right? So you could have more rain, but then you can have also more temperature. And the interaction between the two can lead to mixing effect because for a certain amount of time you could have a greening because you have water coming and then temperature is increasing and evaporation also is going up, right? So you could have like alternating effects, and you need to see both together. Certain areas might definitely see a greening, for example, and other areas can see a desertification. But again, we need to look at the trend, and we need to look at the data I show are global trends, of course, and then regional trends and regional models need to be tackled separately with their own specificities and higher resolution data, of course, but for sure. And about the conflicts between cities and agriculture, how well I envision them, well, it's pretty hard to tell. I think it depends also in which part of the world you are and how the commodity, the water is managed and how the political situation is managed, etc. So I think it will unfold differently in different parts of the world, but for sure, the adaptation strategies will need to tackle these two problems, agriculture and availability of water in cities together, because they cannot be separated, and the problem goes beyond the borders of, let's say, human management point of view or political borders. So it can also be transboundary. So we need to be aware of that.
Okay, and just one very last one, because I found it very interesting. Someone is asking you about the actual precession, the Milankovitch theory. I don't know if we're familiar with that, but in any case, there is this theory that says that the temperatures, they rise and they fall cyclically over the long period. So if that is true, what is our role on climate change? Are we just causing it, or are we just accelerating it? And if we accelerate it, does it mean that the climate will eventually heal itself, or another ice age in the future? So that will be the last question for now. And then I believe that Fabrizio still had an additional comment if he's still on the screen, but please go ahead, Jacopo.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, there are many different theories about what could cause climate change besides greenhouse gases. One is also referring to the increased solar activity, for example. But these theories that usually refer to the critical changes in the Earth, let's say astronomical aspects of the planet Earth, have mostly been proven they can exist, but they do not explain the rise of temperature we're seeing right now. The main driver and the biggest driver is the greenhouse gas effect. So basically, to put it like clear, we are taking fossil fuels and carbon material that was stored by Earth processes for millions of years, and we are releasing this carbon into the atmosphere. And it has been proven already in the 19th century that an increase in greenhouse gases effect, which I listed, are related with an increase in temperature. And this is a very well-known physicochemical law of the physics of the atmosphere. So, and there is a very I wouldn't say perfect, but almost perfect correlation between the release of greenhouse gases and the increase in temperature. And regarding to the climate healing itself, yeah, probably in a matter of millennia, the climate at a certain point will restore its balance, because Earth already did it in the past. Let's think that like millions of years ago, the climate was very different. But the thing that is happening now is the climate is changing incredibly faster than it has changed in the past. That is a key point. It's not only the absolute number of the temperature itself, is the shearing, like steep increase that is happening in very few years. And that is unprecedented for at least the past 800,000 years. And we are well aware of that because of the ice sampling we had in the Arctics. So we can reconstruct. So, and this increase goes perfectly paired with increasing greenhouse gases with the Industrial Revolution. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we will need to close this, because otherwise we'll just be running out of time. But there are some additional questions on the chat, so maybe I can try to ask them to you, Jacopo, or maybe reflect them in the report to some extent. I just wanted to give the floor to Fabrizio, and then he will be leading us. So Fabrizio, if you wish to take the floor for one last remark. Here's, I don't know if you can hear me. Or probably not. Okay. But if not, I know that Fabrizio wanted to refer to one summit that CEMR is organizing in June, and is with a focus on water. It's called the Leader Summit. So maybe we can also share further information with you in our report, so you are also aware, and maybe there are possibilities for you to join. And also our director, Federica Bordello, she will be intervening tomorrow, and she will expand on this Leader Summit in June. So you have more information tomorrow as well. Okay. So
yeah, thank you very much.
Sarah, then I close the question session. Thank you.
Good. No, thank you very much. And thank you for many questions. We have seen there were points that could not be addressed. And Tabi, of course, you made this question 3 times. Of course, everything is connected. And as more deserts will appear in Africa, more alteration of climate is felt in European territories. So, of course, I think it shows again that we only can go through this together. So on cooperation, we do not only talk about cooperation between scientists and governments and communities. We also, of course, talk about international cooperation, in particular decentralized cooperation that we will address tomorrow. So I think your points will come back, and the same the call for examples, and on drought and floods, or on both. We will have several examples through all the days that will unfold. One of them actually is Catalonia that Jacobo just referred to, but many others. And of course, we hope that during the coming days, we will then get it down to what can be done on local level, what are the management answers, the solutions we can adapt to. So I thank you very much, Jacobo. It was fantastic and fascinating at the same time. You see, you have raised a lot of interest, and we are really looking forward to more. We will have an article of yourself, so we will, of course, stay connected into all the work. And now we would then close this point. And we will come to a short interactive session again, which we call Beyond the Timeline, because maybe now we have seen a lot of information, a lot of things happening. We know we have data, climate change is a fact, we know the consequences, we know the water cycles are alterated, but of course all this requires a capacity to do the job for local governments, and that's a little bit the essence why we are here. So we now have been flying very high, I would say, with all the data, and now we go down. What can we be doing? And I would like to ask my colleague Juan Carlos to guide us through a short online consultation that is called Beyond the Timeline.
Yes, thank you very much, Sarah. And yes, as you say, like having had this great introduction, we want to go into the actions of local and regional governments to manage these hazards, particularly on flood and drought, and the actions that they can take in terms of prevention, response, and recovery. And we want to do this through this exercise called Beyond the Timeline. So we're going to go back to Mentimeter. So please use your phones or your window browser to go to menti.com. And again, use the same codes as before, 51326729. And usually we play this game with cards, but we have adapted it to Mentimeter. So first we're gonna do an example so that you all understand what we are supposed to do before we go into the actual exercise. So what we're going to be doing is thinking of the actions that local and regional governments can do before and after an event, a hazard event. We're going to do it both for flooding and droughts separately, and you're going to have to organize them in the order that you think those actions should be taken, and whether they have to be taken before the hazard hits or after it. So just so we get familiar with it, we've prepared this sample question, which is very easy, so that you understand how you're going to have to answer the next question. So you can organize these actions that you see in your screen: eating breakfast, starting to work, waking up, showering, in the order that you think they should be taken or that you take them. And you can answer, so you move them around, and once you're ready, you submit your answer. So this is just a sample so that you know what we're supposed to be doing on the next one. And yeah, this might change. So this just gives us an aggregated answer between all of you. But the idea is that you reflect on those different actions that we're going to be doing. So I'm going to wait a little bit more because we've only had 20 replies and we have 100 people in the room. So I want all of you to join again. Remember, you can go to www.menti.com and use the code you see on the screen, 51326729, to participate. Give you a couple more minutes for more people to join. You can also use the link that I shared via chat, and it will open directly in the browser for you to answer. Okay, so we're going to go now to the actual question looking at flooding, and you're going to see different actions that local and regional governments can take. So please organize them in the order that you think they should be taken, and put the hazard event also in the place that you think it should go. So please organize the actions that you're going to see in your screen, and I'm going to give you a few seconds to reflect on them and organize them, and then submit it to us. And remember to organize all 7 of them, and then you can submit your answer. I'm gonna wait a few more seconds to get some more answers before making any reaction, so that I don't distract you. 12 answers, wait a little bit more. And it's okay for you to take some time to go through all of those different actions. Okay, so I'm gonna start looking and see that we have in the first one kind of an agreement on risk assessment, understanding what the risks are. And I think that's something that was very well reflected in the presentation. What is it that the trends are in our regions and forecasts in terms of those hazards and flooding. Then we have, as a strong second, establishing governing body and competences, having clarity on who is making decisions, who is using those risk assessments. And then we have some different, I think that there's different opinions about the next 3. So whether we have disaster recovery planning, providing financial support, and storing food and supplies, and that together with the hazard event. So I think there will be some here different opinions on whether the hazard event has to come first before you kind of provide financial support. That also depends on the understanding that you're giving to that financial support. Is it for the recovery of it, or is it for adaptation, for example? Also, disaster recovery planning is something that we always have discussions on, whether it should come before or after the hazard. And many local and regional governments are being proactive into understanding already how they can recover faster, and not only responding to a flood, but also accelerate the recovery process. So it is something that can start before a hazard event. And we do have a clear agreement on the last one, being asking for external help once the hazard event has hit and has kind of overcome the local capacities to respond. So thank you very much for that. Now, these are some only 6 options that we gave you to respond. So what other actions would you take, or is your local and regional government already taking related to flooding? And this can be prevention, response, or recovery. So please share them with us. And we see some coming up: school training, public awareness raising, adaptation plans, the early warning and preparedness that goes together with school training and education, prepositioning of supplies and resources. So yeah, also before the hazard already, like storing food and supplies was one of the answers you had, but this can also be done before creating an agency for international cooperation, raising awareness, gender and social inclusion, a very important aspect of those analysis and preparedness plans to make sure that nobody is left behind in terms of the different needs that they have or different vulnerabilities that they have. Green solutions like planting trees, capacity building, hazard mapping. Very good ones in terms of flooding. Different use of what we have here. Inclusive governance, communication strategies, greening and keeping streets clean also. It's a very important aspect of preventing flooding in urban areas, preventing flooding in the systems, in the sewage systems as well. Okay, so now let's go into the different aspect of water waste that we talked about. Let's talk about drought. So again, we're gonna see 6 different actions and the hazard event. And I ask you to take the time to organize them in the order that you think these actions should be taken. And you can put the hazard event, the drought, anywhere you want between those 6 actions. So again, take the time. You have to organize all of the 7. And once you're ready and you're happy with the order that you have them, you can click on the submit button. No answers coming in. Let's give you a few more seconds while everyone is answering. So we only have 7 responses so far. Okay, we have 20. I think it's okay for me to start talking without influencing so much your answers. So we have a lot of like the hazard event is of the 6th place again. So I see that you understand a lot of the actions that are being given as things that the local and regional governments and cities can do beforehand as part of the preparedness plan. So we have the multi-sectoral analysis, identifying both the risk and the impact of a drought in them, establishing the governing body and competences again, designing early warning protocols. This is a clear one that has to go before. And after the guide, it makes sense that risk communication and public awareness was first before, but now it's kind of coming farther down once we have the analysis, the governing body, and kind of go together with the designing early warning protocols and public awareness so that everyone is aware of the actions that they can take or the impact that the drought might have in them. And then we have securing the food and health supply chain more closer to the event itself. That's something that can be taken also even before it is, although a drought is kind of slow onset event, so it's kind of at the same time. And then maintaining public order depending on the risk that arises from that. So thank you very much. And now, again, these are only 6 that were given for the exercise, but I'm sure that you all have many other actions related to drought that you can think of, you can propose, or that your city or region is already doing. And we hope to bring many of these examples throughout the next 2 sessions. So like after we hear from some of the cities, you will have some time to share more of those examples that you know in your cities, but for now you can share them here so that we can have some basic understanding of the ideas that you have. The swimming pools, that's something that we saw in Catalonia as part of previous droughts, the use of swimming pools, the watering of grass as well in gardens. Nature-based solutions is something that we will be looking into a little bit more tomorrow in the interactive exercise. So water restriction, conservation measures, demand control or reduction. We consider carbon agricultural practices as a much longer term like solution of adapting the agricultural practices to be more climate adaptive. safeguarding protocols for children, women, and persons with disabilities, involving civil society, something that we cannot forget also. More education and value of water and where the water is coming from, irrigation system planning, also outside and within the city. Something that we might be hearing again in the examples this week. Water meters, definitely understanding the use of water is kind of the baseline for making any plans or assessments. What else do we have? Ecosystem restoration, something that is also very important to keep more of the limited water that it is within those ecosystems in the region. Rainwater storage fields, artificial rainwater diversion from river. Yeah, some things that are also needed at some point to respond to water drought. Floating solar farms and float from rivers and water bodies in Bangladesh. Oh, something like a very interesting concrete example that we might be able to bring up in later conversations. Community resilience, ecological support, groundwater preservation. So many interesting examples that Farah and Eva, I hope you bring back as part of the conversations when we look into the case studies. And we will be also sharing the results of this Mentimeter consultation with you after the session. So I hope that it also inspires some actions from your participants. But I think now it's time for a quick break before we go into the next session, Sarah. So back to you.
Yes, indeed. And I think it was very good. We have seen both in the strategy as well as in the part you answered on the last brainstorming, the point on political context and designing a strategy and multi-governance as an important element. So, of course, the political commitment is one of the points we really know that we can only add it, doing it all together and looking on what we all know, but also connecting the different political spheres. So I would like just that now we will give you, I think, a 5 minutes short break. You can fetch a glass of water or stand up, whatever you want, but please be back in 5 minutes time, because we will have the European Commission. So from the Directorate for Environment, we will have a speaker. She's joining us, and it's really a big achievement. We have the Commission. We need to really be proud of this opportunity for governance in Europe we have. So please be back in 5 minutes from now. And then we will go through a round of, first through the input of the Commission, then a round again on question and answers. And then we have several cases from local and regional government that will report here to you and share their experience. So we look forward seeing you in 5 minutes. Thank you so much. Okay. Piotr, I'm seeing you trying to join all the time the meeting. Do you want to try and speak?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, because I saw you were...
Thank you very much. But
Okay.
I have still some problems with the connection, because I can see, if you can see me,
I can see you, I can see you, I can hear you. And,
because I can see me.
No, there was no problem with the connection. It was, we have made a small rest.
Yes,
So,
yes. If it is necessary, I take the floor, but still, I think we are still beyond the schedule, so maybe
yeah,
it is not necessary at the moment. Yes.
No, as you want, because I had seen you in the beginning. But okay, now let's start. We are...
Thank you.
Thank you. So we will see. Okay, hello again.
Okay.
And
Sarah, let's wait for 1 minute.
For 1 minute. Is Veronica already with us?
Because I'm waiting for Veronica.
I'm here. Hello.
Okay,
Hello.
okay.
Good, perfect.
Okay. Good morning, Veronica. I was checking that. Okay.
Hello, hello.
So Veronica, yeah, good afternoon, actually, I would say. Huh? Good morning from Latin America. But we now continue our really fascinating start of this Climate Academy. I think it has been confirmed from all sides how important and how tangible is water and water governance. So Veronica, we are very happy to have now you with us from the European Commission and from the Directorate for Environment and Zero Pollution. Of course, for us, it is very important as a global association, UCLG and CEMR, to connect to the European policymaking. Here, this day, we have participants from many regions, so not only Europe, but I think it is definitely so unique for the cities and regions in Europe to count on a regional policy body as a European Commission. So we look very much forward to a short keynote from your side to set this, the context for the upcoming water resilience strategy of the European Union. And of course, we would like in particular to know, the role of that local and regional governments are expected to play. Veronica, the floor is yours.
Many, many thanks, and indeed a very warm good afternoon from Brussels. It's already 4:30 here, and I'm extremely pleased to welcome you all. I would like to congratulate very specially both the Council of European Municipalities and Regions, which happens to be also a member of the Zero Pollution Stakeholder Platform, which I have the pleasure to lead, and the United Cities for Local Government for this very, very valuable initiative. I see that many of you are not necessarily European citizens correctly, internationally so, but I must tell you from a EU perspective, building the capacity and building, the appropriate skills is one of the overarching problems that we are facing. So whenever I see training that is done for new leaders on climate and environmental matters, I'm always happy to join, because I find this is the most important thing that we can do, contribute to the next generation capacity to tackle these very complex and intertwined challenges. I know that the focus of your attention is particularly on water and water management, and I will dwell into that. But somehow, let me start with my usual mantra. Also for water, what we see is the peak of an iceberg, which is produced by the triple planetary crisis that is impacting our globe. It's about the interconnection of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution, all underpinned by our own mankind-driven unsustainable management of resources as such, including water. Where in Europe in particular, we're really at a very specific point in time where we see that water stress And when I mention stress, you always have to understand it under the angle of both too much water, floods, and so on, but also water scarcity and droughts. Water stress signs are now visible almost across the entire European continent. We have very clear forecasts by the United Nations pointing to the fact that Europe is the fastest warming continent on Earth right now, which one may consider a bit unfair given the efforts that we are trying to lead also on the decarbonization side of things, but so it is. We have already now almost 30% of our territory impacted by water scarcity during at least one season. This is what we witnessed in 2019. And this notwithstanding the fact that we start eventually to decline our water abstraction activities. So we are at a bit of a delicate point in time, and we are trying from the European Union to lead the needed changes. There has been a recent report by the Global Commission for Water Economics, which has been demonstrating in detail that actually throughout the planet, the global water cycle is destabilized. The new normal, as we see it in Europe, includes prolonged droughts, followed by flash floods, often in the same region, and particularly prominent have been the events in Spain, Valencia, in October 2024. Myself, I'm of Italian birth and was really also kind of personally affected by what happened in Italy, Emilia-Romagna in May 2023. But unfortunately, we start, having countless examples of this type of extreme weather events. As I said, this is all driven not just by climate change, as sometimes we say very fast in public speeches, but it's really led by the unsustainable manner in which mankind starts dealing with water resources, in stark contrast, if I may say, with very old practices that were in place for millennia, where mankind was always very, very much aware of the importance to live in harmony with, in particular, rivers. As you know, the vast majority of cities across the globe were somehow founded close to river. Water was always the basis for sustainable life in any new settling. Now, of course, what is happening is that simply climate change is exacerbating the trend. Actually, we have released last February the 4th, a very important package assessing the way in which our member states are complying or not with the requirement set under the Water Framework Directive, which is the most important, the mother directive disciplining sustainable management of our fresh water across the EU. And the findings are that today in the EU, we have only 37% of our surface water bodies, so read rivers and lakes, having achieved a good ecological status. So it means almost over 60% of them have not, and less than 30% having achieved a good chemical status. So it means we have 70% of our surface water bodies in bad state of chemical pollution. Also, we note that, of course, when it comes to the sources of this chemical pollution, a lot continues to come from atmospheric pollution, driven by still the use of dirty energy sources, and of course also diffuse pollution from agriculture. The massive fish kill in the Oder River, a river between Poland, Czechia, and Germany in summer 2022, was a particularly vivid example also of this interplay that I was trying to describe between climate change, pollution, and biodiversity, meaning because of climate change, the water quantity already in the river was lower, hence loads of natural pollution coming from industrial activity, agriculture, didn't find their way to be a little bit further diluted, and this led to the blooming of a particularly toxic alga that led to the massive killing of tons and tons and tons of aquatic species. Species, first of all, but of course, the damage to the aquatic ecosystem was very big. So it really prompts a different way of looking at water. It's because of this understanding that our President von der Leyen, has decided in these political guidelines for the new college 2024-2029 to secure that we put water much higher on the political agenda. And it's the first time that we have a commissioner for environment that is also a commissioner for competitive circular economy and water resilience. So I'm just actually out of a pretty eventful week, where not only I had the pleasure to have, in particular, CEMR, the Council of European Municipalities, with me at the Zero Pollution Stakeholder Platform, where we have presented the second Zero Pollution Monitoring and Outlook report, here and there giving us some reasons of hope as well. I want to stress that we are measuring every 2 years the state of pollution across the EU according to 6 key targets on which we have agreed back in 2021. Some of them are particularly relevant from a water perspective. For example, we are measuring how well or not we are reducing nutrient pollution. And there I must say we are still not on track to achieve our 2030 goal of cutting nutrient pollution by 30%. Instead, we are doing progress on plastic litter, and we are certainly becoming much better in understanding what are the problems behind. So not only last week we had these important deliverables, but we also had a very important high-level stakeholder conference to which over 600 participants took place, not only from a lot of our member states, but also stakeholders and so on, because we are coming to the crunchy stages, finalization stages of the water resilience strategy. What does this strategy intend to do? It intends to create a trajectory to enable the European Union to achieve water resilience by 2050, a goal to which the EU has already committed during the United Nations Water Conference that many of you might have heard about. It took place in New York in March 2023. That conference sparked a global water action agenda, and the EU on its side is committed to deliver on all the commitments it has presented in that context, many of which are linked to the sound implementation of the acquis it manages. And next to the Water Framework Directive that I was hinting to, we are proud to have a very good drinking water directive that, if well implemented, secures that we get good and clean water from the tap across the EU. We have work to do in its sounder implementation as well. We have revised in the past mandate the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive to secure that we capture better the so many micropollutants that can enter our fresh waters, and there is now a program of modernization of our infrastructure in that respect. We are trying to stimulate an agenda of better water reuse, not first and foremost for agriculture, because we would like to diminish the over-abstraction, some of which even illegal in some territories. But in general, it's about securing that we touch less on our so precious groundwaters by having resort there where possible to precision farming, first of all, but also to some water reuse. But also water use could be used much, much more widely for urban purposes across cities. So this leads me a little bit to your last question. What is the role of cities and regions in this? I would say they're really at the forefront. And I'm proud that when we presented the Zero Pollution Monitoring and Outlook report, we have also in parallel presented a dashboard on the performance in tackling pollution across all European regions and the 27 capitals of the European Union, showing that although, of course, the results are different across areas, basically there have been efforts across the entire regions of the EU and across all capitals to get better, get greener. And may I add, this is really my personal take out of many years now working together with regions and cities, that it's also at that level that local authorities want to go faster in a holistic manner. I usually don't have to spend a lot of time to explain to a mayor what it means to devise a solution that at the same time creates more humidity, so comes as a good climate adaptation measure, allows better storing water, creates a nice urban park for the kids next door, therefore delivering also better air and so on. They understand they have few resources, they have little money, and they know that they need to spend that little money and that few human resources in the most holistic and well-designed manner as possible to achieve many multiple co-benefits for their citizens. So I think this is where the Green Deal is going to happen, is actually happening, as data are showing out of the many cities that are cooperating in our programs. In particular, I have the honor of leading the one which is called the Green City Accord, that is measuring the progress that the cities are making across 5 key parameters: air, water management, urban greening, waste management, and noise pollution. But we're also working closely with colleagues in other departments of the Commission, I think in particular research and development, on the cities mission, the smart cities mission, that have committed to become climate neutral already by 2030. And of course, I'm thinking of so many other programs of urban transition that we are leading, and in particular of the fantastic programs to win the title to become European Green Capital or European Green Leaf. The Green Capital is a capital, and the Green Leaf is a city with less than 100,000 inhabitants. Because these are words next to the beautiful ceremony that goes with that, and some money that is tagged to these awards, really changes the mindset of the people in particular that want to see ultimately their cities as being embracing this green and digital transition that is the way in which the EU believes its competitiveness and prosperity depend upon. So I count very much on the young leaders in this call to be the ones that are going to lead this change on the ground in a very near future, because we need to go fast together. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Veronica, and I hope you stay for some time. I personally also have a question, because of course we live all the water governance and the fight for the resources already. But before doing this, I would like to ask Axel Griffon from the CEMR to address a little bit and complement the note or do a question. Axel.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. It's been a very busy week last week for you, Mrs. Manfredi. And I would like to thank you very much for the opportunity to discuss with you today, and thank you for your contribution. This discussion on water is very timely here in Europe, and the upcoming water resilience strategy is, of course, very important for us. We welcome this initiative. Water is a critical issue for local and regional government, as you just mentioned it. It does not only affect environmental sustainability, but also public services, economic resilience, and social cohesion. From our perspective, the perspective of the local and regional governments, the challenges are very clear. We need to ensure and strengthen the implementation of the existing legislation. We need to secure funding to modernize our infrastructure. And we need to address the different challenges linked to water with integrated and smart planning. And cities and regions, they are on the front lines of these challenges. So we have some key messages to display, to showcase. They also echo the opinion of the Committee of the Regions that was prepared 1 year ago, I think. And I have only 3 points for today. So the multi-level governance approach is very important. So local and regional government must be fully involved in shaping and implementing water policies to ensure that we have effective solutions and tailored solutions to the environment, the local environment. We are involved in the Water Sensitive City partnership of the Urban Agenda. So it's a new partnership that was launched recently. And in this partnership, we ensure that we have an integrated approach to urban water management. So it's really important to tackle the different challenges that we have currently. The second point now is about fundings. So as I mentioned, we need to strengthen the existing financing tool and to ensure that municipalities can upgrade their infrastructure and implement new solutions, innovative solutions for water management and to build the climate resilience. And then the last point, just an inclusive water transition. So we need to ensure that access to water must remain affordable and equitable. So public water service, they play a crucial role in this purpose. They ensure water efficiency and their capacity to deliver must be supported at the EU level. That's for the opposition. I had one question, if possible. We took note of the ongoing work at the European Parliament on the draft initiative report on the water resilience. I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about the recommendation emerging from the very early discussions in the ENVI committee. Thank you very much, Mrs. Manfredi, and maybe see you later in another meeting.
Thank you very much, Axel. Veronica, do you want to answer to this one?
Yes, just very brief. First of all, many thanks, because everything that Axel mentioned, of course, is also very much in our radar screen and our intention, to deliver a strategy that is very respectful on the one end of the way in which the governance is organized, but also a little bit looking at the objectives that are uniting us, and where I think here and there the governance also needs some streamlining, some facilitation, and so on. So having regard to the draft opinion of the European Parliament, there have been over 1,000 amendments from what I heard, and we will have an opportunity indeed to discuss it in just a few days in front of the Environment Committee of the European Parliament. We consider the draft opinion a very good basis, a very, very good basis. We think that the rapporteur really tackled all the essential also enablers to stay focused, because we have a financing challenge. Let's face it, colleagues, I will not come as a surprise when I tell you that the water cycle is broken. First and foremost, you have to restore nature as well. This is always a challenging business. And I must say that we are not yet there in terms of really seeing the bankable opportunities for a sound nature restoration agenda that comes also, of course, in support of water restoration. But apart from that, we have the infrastructure modernization that is certainly very important. You know that in the EU over the weekend, there has been a very important plan launched about defense. It's sad, but this is where we are. We are all leading the alliance, and we all understand that we are in a special geopolitical situation, and the EU is very attached to its security. Well, security comes through water as well. You need to secure the resilience of your infrastructure. So digitalization comes also as a way to, on the one hand, visualize data in a much faster manner, accelerate the deployment of smart metering, which is a point which is also made in the opinion that we like very much. But then you also have to guarantee the security dimension of that. So for all of you in the call who are also a little bit IT nuts and nerds and love IT, I think water and IT have a bright future for decades to come. Invest into training on that, because basically all local authorities, all regions, all capitals will have to invest in smart water metering and smart management of their water infrastructure. So I see a lot of work ahead of us, but I hope that at least the trajectory will be sufficiently clear for us to collectively engage.
Thank you very much, Veronica. So I have also a question, because I'm from Germany, and now we also see that this is a country which lacks now on water sources. So although it's full of rivers and groundwater, but for example, the region around Berlin suffers now conflict. Who has the right to the available water, which is, there's another water spectrum now after the exit of carbon strategy. So there is the point of industry versus housing, and old rights and new rights, but there is a discussion, for example, to do no more new urban areas because there is no water, not necessarily physically, but the right on water need to be stipulated. But then on the other hand, you have industries that get the right very fast. So this conflict, how is it on European level? Because we need all economic growth, we need jobs, we need industry, there is an economic need to recover. But of course, this is imposing the different ways of access, who gets right. And then the consequence, of course, is the other piece, if there is a discussion on European level on water, not only water standard, but how much water under one price. Now, so if people consume more, if there is a regional policy debate on this to also have a scale of prices, for example.
Absolutely. So very briefly, and by the way, I try also to capture some of the questions I see appearing in the chat. You are touching one of the most delicate, sensitive areas, Mrs. Höflich, because per se, the quantitative management of the water resources is essentially a matter for national sovereignty, even under the current treaty, you know. Nonetheless, via the Water Framework Directive, we have increasingly created a way for member states in particular to have very good cross-border cooperation, because, I mean, the water is cross-border by nature. So let's put it this way. I don't see immediately the European Union per se coming with very prescriptive requirement that then you can point to page 7 of water resilience strategy. Like, this is what has to happen in Berlin, if you see what I mean. But we are coming with, I would say, important messages about the fact that since this resource is so precious, most likely we're going to suggest to the member states a hierarchical approach in dealing with that, which means first and foremost, we should think about how to reduce the demand. Then we should think about how to enhance the efficient use of this resource. And then we should have ways possibly to stimulate reuse and so on. Why am I stressing this angle? Because even if I cannot solve right now the water allocation fight that maybe is already ongoing, as you say, in certain areas around the Berlin region, and I have to entrust completely, and I do trust the German water authority to do their job well. We would like to create certain fairness parameter that have to be increasingly taken into account. So first of all, there is a right to drinking water. I don't think that anyone can put that in danger. But then how do you distinguish between economic sectors? And I think you will have to reward or be more favorable to those sectors that truly are already doing, by definition, an effort to be efficient, reduce, reuse. Otherwise, you end up always giving more to those that actually are doing the least efforts to be more responsible managers of water. And I don't think that this is acceptable from a social fairness perspective. So you will see us going that direction without becoming overly prescribing. But we have already an article in the Water Framework Directive that actually gives a lot of marginal maneuver also to people in Berlin to think about how to do things better, because already today the directive says that you should give incentives to those who use water efficiently and actually let the polluters pay, something that we are not doing in all our member states in the way we should. I see a colleague that was raising a quick question about Central Asia. Just to say that in general, expect the water resilience strategy to have a robust chapter on international cooperation. We have a number of bilateral dialogue with several parts of the world, including Central Asian countries. And we are really committed to drive this water resilience agenda at global level. So it's very much a global agenda. We are engaged in all the multilateral fora. We are backing the G7 coalition, for example, to secure the water is mentioned in all the COPs. And in general, I mean, cooperating very closely right now with Senegal and United Arab Emirates that are leading the next, the 2026 water conference that will take place in December 2026. So stay tuned and very happy to cooperate with all of your colleagues.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Manfredi. I think the point Eva wanted to raise that one on Central Asia, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's also another, Ms. Manfredi, thank you very much for the very dynamic and very clear presentation. It's really appreciated. I also was at the consultation last week, and the Charlemagne room was full. There was no room left. So that means also there's a huge increase of interest. And the interesting part is that there were so many different stakeholders present. And I love the dynamics because people were very active and they were responding on a slide, and we had people from the Commission responding on the basis of what the public was presenting. So that was a very interactive and very interesting format as well. Here we also have a comment with someone, but we don't see what this person is from, but it's asking about the sustainable agriculture. They would like to know more about the energy application in order to do sustainable agriculture. And is someone apparently working on optimization of solar panel efficiency in the Sahel region, where there are droughts, desertification, and water resources problems. So if you can comment on that, please. Thank you.
Just to say that this is a strand that is closely followed by our colleagues of DG INTPA, International Partnerships. We actually provide, because I see that the colleague is working, asking whether there is a program or something that could help him, possibly also in developing an ad hoc project. And I would advise him to direct its query there, but we can facilitate. So if you want, please feel free also to send my email, and I will secure that my colleagues more in charge with this international dimension can possibly pilot the colleague to the right colleagues in the relevant DG. I'm afraid I have to leave you because I have a concomitant meeting starting right now, but it has been really a big pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Manfredi. So I will just maybe send you these couple of questions bilaterally, and then we will put in our report because we're doing it at the end of the week. So many things.
Thank you, Ms. Manfredi. It was very, very insightful. Thanks so much for joining. Good. So now we come to our last segment, which is a little bit looking into practice. This time we have a case study on climate challenges, and we have some guests from Ukraine. We will look at a climate change viewer in Ukraine and the climate and water platform. So it is very interesting. Now we saw the European governance, and we go a little bit back now to scientific work as in the morning 1 hour ago we were discussing. So I'm very happy to count on Valery Ospyov from UHMI. Please introduce yourself and give us an insight. And I'm afraid I will have to warn you after 7 minutes because we have now to look a little bit on time. Thank you very much for being with us.
Okay, nice to meet you. My name is Valery. I'm from Kyiv and I'm working at Ukrainian Hydrometeorological Institute. There we also have a research unit, laboratory of the river systems modeling. Besides hydrological modeling and research, we're also doing web climate services. You see my presentation, I think, and here we see some examples of what we are doing. And today I will briefly cover climate change viewer and climate and water in more detail. So briefly, what challenges do we have right now? Water resources are very unequally distributed in our country. We have large water scarcity in the south. The second point, because of Russian invasion that is going right now, for the last 3 years, we have damage of some water infrastructure for water supply, for agriculture, irrigation. So it's even exacerbates the challenges in water scarcity. And maybe the last point, it's quite common maybe for all countries that we lack climate data access. I mean, user-friendly climate data access, not just data sets for scientists. And the first platform, let me switch to the browser. It calls Climate Change Viewer. Well, do you see the browser right now? Maybe.
Yes, we see. We see. And now you switch to the next slide of Ukraine regions.
Yeah. This is, I think this is now you see the browser. This is Climate Change Viewer.
Yeah, we see
Yes,
the
we
browser.
do. Yeah, thank you. So here it was our first platform 4 years ago. We started from this one. The task was to get access to present main parameters, air temperature and precipitation for administrative regions of Ukraine. So here we could see how climate will change according to climate projections and see the number for each regions. Also, if we click, we see the chart which shows high emission scenarios, middle emission scenarios, deviations in the future. Also, in a black line, it shows real observations and see that we can see that real observations agree with climate change scenarios. All data is downloadable. User could download image, CSV file, or entire map, for example. Also, the same visuals we have for historical period. Very often historical data is needed. And here we see that it was not changed, but for the last 3 years we have climate warming, like everyone. So let me come back to my presentation. So another service is Climate and Water. It's our recent development. It's about future water resources of Ukraine in the context of climate change, of course. So here, before I demonstrate this, I want to underline some important points that you could also use during development or analyzing climate information. First of all, for a region like a country or river basin, you have to use regionalized or so-called downscaled climate projections, which means high-resolutional climate projections. For Europe, for example, we have Eurocordex projections that cover the whole European domain. So we use this ensemble. And also you have to use hydrological models specifically calibrated for your region. In our case, we set up and calibrated the soil and water assessment tool for entire Ukraine and also including upstream transboundary parts. On this slide, you can see 9 main river basins. Also, hydrological model should be calibrated for your rivers. You can see a lot of more than 50 black dots, which means that we use these gauges for calibration. So overall, this combination gives climate projections of water cycle components that are presented at the platform. The second important point that you should not forget about user experience design. So if you plan to design a web tool about climate, you not only need researchers, you also have another disciplines like design, managers, communicators. It's really important because from my experience, I know that researchers often rely only on their experience and some logic, some rules, but it doesn't work if you don't have a clear audience for whom you are designing. So at first you need to define your audience and then conduct interviews, conduct surveys with them and understand their needs and their issues, their challenges. Only after this you start brainstorming, create some prototypes and test this prototype iteratively. So you show to the target audience, listen their feedback and go on and on until you receive the final product. So let me briefly show how it looks in a browser.
And maybe, Valeri, you could also say how the local governments use the platform. So what is, if this is really, how do they use and apply?
Yeah, thank you. So the climate water was designed for water managers because like a European member, we have to develop river basin management plan like all European countries, and river basin management plan should include climate change scenarios, how they influence river discharge and other water balance components. So our regional departments who are responsible for implementing these river basin management plans, they need this clear information about climate change impact on water resources. So for them, we develop this platform. Also, if you go to this platform, you could read more information about its purpose. So starting screen shows the main components: temperature, precipitation, and river runoff. And if we go to the data, we see annual cycle, how it will change. Also, it's important to underline that river basin managements, they like this visual, so that's why we put it as a default. People don't understand everything, any kind of climate information. We need to specifically design what people understand. So water managers like charts like this. Also, we present mean annual values. For them, it's important in their planning to rely not only for like average or median, but also they should include ranges, what actually could happen, because we have a lot of models, not only one. And we play a lot how to present this information, but came up that just present each model individually is the best way to present uncertainty. Also, we have maps. We have circles for river runoff, and for other parameters, we have polygons. Of course, for management, they need to choose their basin. That's why we have this comprehensive menu. It's because it's official delineation and these long official names. So it's very useful for them. And also we found out that managers needs this tooltip, this large tooltip that which accumulate information into one place, because it's already presented on a screen, but it's unuseful if it's not accumulated into one tooltip. Also, it's important that here we have some glossary, how to use the platform, and data sources. I will show you data sources, and here information, it's quite general that you could also use it for your reports or some kind of information, because there we try to present explanation about the climate change in a common language, and only after this going into technical details for scientists. So you could visit this platform and maybe found something useful for you as well. So I'm finishing. I'm come back to my presentation.
Yeah, and can you maybe stress on how if this platform has helped to create capacity in local governments, yeah, and then conclude.
Yeah, this platform it's developed for river basin managers who are a part of our Ministry of Environment. So they are basically government who deliver permissions for water uses, how much water they could take from a river. So for long-term strategic planning, they need to take into account the results presented on this platform. Let me conclude. Please subscribe to our LinkedIn. Here we have a lot of insights about climate change and climate change impact on water resources. For example, there presented information about future trends in river discharge in Europe. For the last 10 years, we have like 10 different studies showing sometimes similar, sometimes not similar results. So you could find out which study suits you the best. So thank you. And if we have time, questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm looking into the chat. But I see Eva, please.
Yep. Thanks, Sarah, and thank you very much, Valerie, for the very clear presentation. Some of the colleagues are asking whether you could share with me the link to access these platforms so they can also explore themselves. And also, how replicable is this web tool in other countries? It's replicable, or if it's just purely, for Ukraine and taking into consideration your geographical situation?
Yes, it's replicable. I think when we published the article, we even released the code of this platform. But for now, you could take visuals that we use and use these visuals for your region. Of course, in terms of research, you need your hydrological model for your country and climate projections for your model to actually do the research. But if you are talking about the web tool itself, now you could just absolutely feel comfortable to take visuals and repeat them in your platform.
Okay, thank you very much, Valerie. I think your presentation again unfolds that if we use the science well, like in your case, you have a lot of data of meteohydrologics, which are I think the point you made, making a lot of graphics, showing it in a way that it is more comprehensive so that everybody can understand and report. And of course, when we, in this first day of the Climate Academy, we have probably seen that the science is very far, and we can learn a lot and update a lot. And maybe in the coming hours, in particular tomorrow, we can still detail a little bit then how can this happen. No, I think you say long-term planning, and you see your platform as an important inspiration for sure for local activity, but how in this is this then going to work? I think some of the examples will unfold this challenge now, how to make this really a habit for everybody who is planning or who is managing land or urban areas or agriculture policies. So thank you very much, and we are very grateful you shared also your website. It looks very interesting. We will for sure visit it. And now I think we came with this experience to the closing of our first day, and I will give the floor to Eva. But before, I will also remind you tomorrow to connect again, but in another hour. So tomorrow our Climate Academy is earlier, and also the evaluation form. Please download it, because this is, of course, like saying a like to us, you know. When you like what we are doing, then you will also give us a good evaluation or maybe also points to improve. Thank you very much, and back to Eva.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and also Valerie for the last presentation. Two practical things, because I see that there is a huge interest on the website. In the agenda that I have shared with you, I don't know whether you see it here, you have at the beginning the agenda itself, but after the agenda, you have the background material of European information or international information, and also the links to the websites that colleague Valerie has presented. So please take a look at that. It's both in English and Spanish. And I will resend this material with the final report that I will be producing this week. So please take a look at that because it's very valuable. And also the recommendations that my colleague Axel has presented on the water receipt. You cannot see it, but there's also another document here, also in the background document, where you can access our recommendations. So all this material is available for you to learn. And I would just like to close, Sarah, with some personal thoughts, if I may, because it's been a very interesting session, and I'm happy to still see 88 people around the screen. That's amazing for having been here so long. And I would like to thank you because even if the target group was mainly Europeans, I've seen that there is a huge amount of participants outside Europe, which also shows the interest and also the willingness to learn from what we're doing and the other way around. So that's also a clear signal that maybe for the next academies, we could maybe enlarge a bit more to also learn from other parts of the world, because I think this is very interesting. Also, we've seen that water is a unique resource. We've heard that from Fabrizio this morning, then from Jacopo, then from Veronica Manfredi. It's a unique resource. And even if now we're in a situation where water is in the middle of a lot of fights, but as still remains, a crucial element that has to be combined also with other policies. So that's why we need to look at the cross-cutting issues on climate and water, and biodiversity. So we cannot just talk about these different sectors separately. We need to link them up. Then we've also seen that even if the climate change, as Jacopo has presented, is following the natural trends, we've seen that the speed in the human action is too fast now. That's why we cannot wait much longer than we need to take action at the moment, and very quickly. We've also heard from Veronica Manfredi about the future water resilience strategy. That's a unique strategy, but we need to now really look into implementation aspect in a very serious way if we really want to make the difference. And we welcome also the involvement of our colleagues at CEMR within the European platforms that contribute to this broad dialogue. And we've also heard from our colleague Valerie about these web tools. They are very innovative, and I'm impressed to see, the efficiency of the content there and how well they are working. And our last comment is that we cannot look at water as one aspect only in one continent. It's a cross-cutting aspect, but it's also affecting us globally. And in the same way that is affecting us in terms of floods, it's also affecting us in terms of drought. So that's why we need to pay attention to both dimensions, and not because one continent is suffering from floods means that it's safe from drought. So we need to pay attention, because in one country you can have both aspects in the same year or even in the same month. So we really need to make the best use of water resources. And not to forget as well that this is a global aspect. So even if we're now concentrating a bit in Europe, but it's a global aspect. And we need to also frame this within the Sustainable Development Goals agenda. As you may know, we are celebrating this year the 10th anniversary of the signature of the SDGs. And it's also the 10th anniversary of the Paris Agreement on Climate. So it's a really unique opportunity to link both agendas and make them run in parallel, but also seen from the local perspective what we can do. Because this global agenda sometimes member states are behind that, and they need to comply with their own obligations, but we as local and regional leaders also have a crucial responsibility. So this is just an open invitation to combine both the levels of governance into this global agenda. And just last but not least, just to announce a bit about tomorrow, as Sarah mentioned, will be started at 11 o'clock Brussels time. And tomorrow will be structured in a bit different way. Today we cover the challenges, mainly challenges, and how we're facing some of the risk. And tomorrow we're going to focus more on the way ahead. We'll also be listening to cost of action, of inaction, how much water could cost if we don't take the right action. We'll be hearing again from another scientist from a more economic perspective. Also, colleagues from the IB they will present us also projects on water. They will also be listening to the United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction Unit. And we'll also have examples from the Generalitat Catalunya and some examples on the centralized cooperation from Peru, Mozambique, and Benin. And tomorrow we'll be focusing more on raising awareness, how we can be better prepared, and a bit of hope, how we can look ahead of us and make a difference. So thank you very much for all of you for coming here, and thanks Sarah for the moderation, and also Juan Carlos for the active Mentimeter. I think it's good that also participants on the screen can also have their same. So we'll also be sharing the results of our Mentimeters. I think it's also very interesting to share with you. Thank you very much. And now I close this meeting.
Oh,
So,
thank you, Eva.
Okay.
Please also distribute for Central Asia, because it's really interesting topic nowadays, and we